Right now, however, providing much needed help to the people of Puerto Rico without even setting foot on the island. Nearly 2 months have passed since Hurricane Maria carved its way across the island. People there are still in desperate need of aid and relief. But getting that aid and those supplies to the people has been challenging. As you know, relief workers on the ground recently got some help from people far, far away. College students in our area, piecing together, if you will, a digital path and a digital map for workers to sort of learn their way around the island and around, by the way, the 1,500 roads and bridges damaged after the storm. Rutgers University helped create sort of the map data. There you see some of them. Joining us this morning, what a privilege to have with us, Francesca Giannetti and Krista White. They are digital librarians from Rutgers University. Welcome to you both, New Brunswick and Newark, or did I get it the other way around? That's right?
That's correct.
Very good. And I wish we could have someone from Camden, but they were involved too. This is not your idea, correct? But you're part of this mapathon, if you will?
That's right.
Who was it that came to you and said, you know, here's how we can lend a hand?
Yeah, well, this started on Twitter, actually.
Wow.
The first
social
event,
media.
I know, social media unites us all and destroys us all sometimes.
Yes, sometimes it does, correct.
Anyway, the first event was actually planned at Columbia University.
Okay.
So we were following in the wake of Alex Gil at Columbia,
Sure.
who has our role in the libraries there. We both saw his event planned. We saw the flyer on Twitter, and we thought,
Okay.
we could probably do something like that at Rutgers.
Let's get into the details of the event. It's a mapathon.
Yes.
In essence, what happens at the mapathon?
You set aside a period of time, invite people to come, and they use online platforms for mapping in order to help aid agencies gather information about past and present conditions on the island. So it's a way for folks who might not otherwise be data scientists to contribute.
For example, give me something that emerged as a result of that ultimately provided some help to the good folks of Puerto Rico.
So OpenStreetMap has a platform that they call HOT, and that is an online interface where volunteers can go sign up for an account, and then what they can do is follow along with specific projects. The easiest are, of course, beginner projects, and in our case, we were working with beginner projects in OpenStreetMap, and what volunteers would do is just trace buildings on this online interface in order to provide information about the buildings and the roads that were there before Hurricane Maria hit and destroyed so much of the infrastructure.
And Francesca, how would that information be helpful to relief workers, whether it be FEMA, Red Cross, on the island? How would that guide them, if you will?
Yeah, well, I think in our events were held the week after Hurricane Maria hit, and the immediate relief efforts were focused on helping people, getting water and food and services to people. And a lot of the projects that we focused on were focusing on the rural areas where people were cut off
and still need help,
and they still need help and electricity. And so by contributing this data about buildings, we could guide relief workers to where they needed to go, where people were living, where services were located, and so on and so forth, so that they could organize their efforts.
And in the context of roads, relief workers on the ground might not even know where the roads were supposed to be.
Correct.
And so having volunteers map on top of previous satellite imagery could aid them in figuring out where they might need to dig in order to get to people to provide them with that aid.
I also envision perhaps them having that information and then having a local person, expert on hand, saying, yeah, that road used to be there, but it's not there anymore.
That's right.
And I guess, tell me if I'm oversimplifying, that would help them circumnavigate that area to ultimately get to the destination, but not waste time going to a road that wasn't there to begin with.
Possibly, or possibly, knowing where the road was supposed to be would, if there was no way to circumnavigate, they might be able, if the damage wasn't too bad, to sort of make their way through with equipment and get there faster. So that's, of course, a judgment call for the people on the ground.
How was turnout at your Mapathon? And I know you each had one at different campus. And I know with events like this where disaster suddenly strikes, there's not much time to plan, but was it refreshing to see a fair number of people coming out, lending their expertise to the people of Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I don't think we knew what to expect, especially since we launched this event and planned it within a week.
Right.
I was really pleasantly surprised by the turnout that we had. It was a lot of undergraduate students who were looking for a way to help. They obviously couldn't contribute a lot in terms of funding or actually going to the island to help. So this gave them a way to participate and do something meaningful.
Well, sit tight, because when we come back, I want to ask you a little bit more about the students, because I'm guessing a fair number of them were Latinos themselves, and lending a helping hand to fellow Latinos, I'm sure, probably warmed their heart, if you will. So sit tight, a few more questions for you, more on MAP data and the help it's providing to hurricane victims in Puerto Rico. Welcome back to Tiempo, providing much-needed help to the people of Puerto Rico without setting foot on the island. That's the beauty of this. Local college students pieced together a digital path, if you will, for workers to sort of navigate around the storm-ravaged island. That and so much more. With us this morning, Francesca Gianetti and Krista White. They are digital librarians from Rutgers University, and they've been educating us on how this is working. Let me ask you, I would assume there are a fair number of Latino students at both campuses that were perhaps involved in this, and maybe for them got an extra sense of accomplishment, of reward, if you will. Can you share with me how many you saw and the stories that they told you about what they were doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we both partnered with our Latino and Caribbean Studies programs, and as a result, we've got lots of Latino students, but also majors in those areas that showed up to participate. And I think it really helped to have this kind of event where they could gather and share their stories and hear how people were affected. I know a lot of them had family and loved ones on the island. In some cases at that date, they hadn't yet been able to contact them. And I think there was a lot of fear and frustration and pain, and it really helped to
But
have
because of that, I would argue that
gather.
there was probably a lot of passion and a lot of concerted effort that came not so much from here, but from here, from the heart as well. Did you hear any stories from students?
There's one young woman who leaps to mind, actually, who came to the edit-a-thon. She was very much worried about her family in Puerto Rico, and she came to the event specifically because she felt a little bit helpless, I think, and this was a way for her to do something tangible that she knew would be helping her family and other Puerto Ricans on the island, and it was really wonderful to be able to facilitate that kind of personal response.
Wow, that's fabulous. Is what you were doing part of was it all volunteer, or was it part of a curriculum per se of another class where it all came together, or a little bit of both?
It was a little bit of both. Our events were completely volunteer-based, so and a lot of students came. However, our Latino and Caribbean Studies department in New Brunswick does offer extra credit for activities like this, so we did have a sign-in sheet where students could write down their names and get credit for their majors.
For lending a helping hand.
Yeah.
Well, that's so fabulous. I know that you mentioned earlier, Krista, that the beneficiaries, if you will, certainly are the people of Puerto Rico, but the people who took the information firsthand were the good folks at FEMA and the American Red Cross.
That's correct.
Have you been able to get any feedback from them, information going the other way, from the island to you guys to say, listen, what you're doing, what you've done, whether it's at Columbia or in New Brunswick or in Newark, has been helpful, has been useful, and thank you.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything, but I think that's not for lack of gratitude, but because there are so many different places that are participating in these edit-a-thons, and they're really concentrated on trying to get work done on the ground. So
yeah, understood. Yes. What's the hashtag?
PR Mapathon.
PR Mapathon is the social media hashtag on Twitter. So I point that out so that if anyone is listening and wants to get involved either in a future event, if they go there, what will they find using that hashtag?
Yeah, so PR Mapathon on Twitter, you're going to see a feed of all of the events organized, not just in New York and New Jersey, but across the United States. And you'll see flyers, you'll see photos, you'll see information about future events. And I think we discussed earlier about how most of the beginner projects for Puerto Rico are finished, but now there are these intermediate and advanced mapping projects. And the next step might be developing materials to host mapathons for some of these more intermediate projects.
Yep, and we don't wish it, but if there's another disaster or something happen, you've got the basis and the formula now that you know works that hopefully can be applied to future events. So congratulations, ladies. This is fabulous news, and thank you for helping out the good people of Puerto Rico.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Regards to all the Scarlet Knights back at school.